Good morning. It's your Monday Minute with Billy B and Freddie G.
That's right. It's the BG commercial here.
Yeah. So today we're talking about time management and managing your calendars. So most of us that we've heard about, we've all got the same number of hours in the day, 365 days in a year. All of that is just how do you manage that and how do you manage it to be the most effective. So I think that Freddie and I have a little bit different philosophies. However, they're both successful philosophies. So you've got to determine what works well for you and implement that in your business. And many of you probably have a time management strategy or a calendar set up in your business. But I think that the point of today is how do we manage it to be the most effective, to get the most out of every day. I had a manager early in my career. He always said, "You've got to win the day, Billy. You've got to win the day."
That's right.
And I think by managing your calendar effectively in advance of the day coming up is the way to do that. So, Freddie, how do you manage your calendar to win your days?
Well, I'm probably like most people, and I subscribe to organized chaos.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's two different ways that I do it. So listen to Billy on how to organize your day. But, I don't know, I was probably like 5, maybe 7, 8 years ago, someone told me about, keeping just a journal or a calendar, something to physically write in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've literally got pages and pages of just notes. I go to meetings and I'm taking notes, and I'm writing down important dates in here. And then I carry this with me everywhere I go. So if I lose this,
that's trouble.
That's trouble.
Yeah.
And then at the house, I have a different method, and I brought, and this is not it, but I use a desktop calendar.
Yeah.
And I take the desktop calendar and I pin it to my wall by the kitchen, so I've got to walk by it every day. And whenever, from birthdays to office meetings to special events I want to attend, or any other kind of meetings I needed to remind myself of, I put it on the calendar and I just pin it on the wall. And that's pretty much how I do. And sometimes I do the Google reminder or the Outlook reminder.
Okay.
Not so much now. Whenever
That would be just for the bigger events, or what would make you do the Google reminder? Because you got it here, you got it there. What would be significant enough to make it a Google reminder? A big event, or just something that you might forget because it's not normal?
something that it'll be a big event or just a big meeting, something that's going to be extremely important that can change things.
Okay.
So I want to double check, triple check, quadruple check to make sure that I don't forget about that particular meeting.
So then, in your I will call this your planner.
Mm-hmm.
So in this, you take that everywhere you go. Do you ever have events on this and on that?
A lot of double entry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then, when you have an appointment with somebody, other than like we have a recurring meeting,
Mm-hmm.
if you meet somebody Thursday at lunch, then what do you do? What do you do with that Thursday lunch appointment? So today's Monday.
Right.
You set up a Thursday lunch. Where do you enter that?
I fly by the seat of my pants a lot.
Which is many of us,
I think
right?
that's what most people do is
yeah.
fly by the seat of their pants. So if I had a phone conversation or a face-to-face meeting, planning a future meeting, I'm going to write it down in here, and then when I'm through my downtime, I'm not busy, and that doesn't happen much. But I just flip through here, and just try to reflect on some of the past conversations that I've had, some of the past meetings, or maybe some of the past promises that I've made.
Sure.
And by writing them down, it triggers that memory again.
Mm-hmm.
It's stored up here in my brain somewhere.
Okay, so you're really good at remembering.
I wake up early in the morning.
Yeah.
I go to bed early, and I'm good at remembering.
That's good.
And by reading my journal or my planner, it just spurs off that memory. And then the big calendar that I use, what that's really good for is to remind everybody else around me that's in my life, friends, coworkers, or someone in a relationship.
Sure.
Hey, I'm not going to be available because I've
Okay.
got something going on this particular date. And look, I wrote it on the calendar. So
Yeah, so it's in.
don't say you didn't know. Say you didn't know.
So that's interesting. So we've got different philosophies and different perspectives, but I think, like we said, they're both successful philosophies and they both work. Yours works for you, mine works for me. So I am.
And there is an age gap here.
Well, and there's a different type of business too. you've got several things that you're managing at once. I'm managing like a household calendar and a Alliant Insurance Services calendar. You've got Houston Professionals, Houston Young Professionals, Freddie's Personal Life, and then your core business, and then
Right.
all these interviews that you see that you're doing. So
Right.
you've got a lot to manage. I'm kind of a serial planner, so call it good, call it bad, but it's almost a professional paranoia, I call it. And so I've got a work phone and a personal phone. You see me at the world's southernmost point before it got blown away on my personal. But the interesting thing is I've always managed a calendar, and I try to be very effective with it. And I use a personal calendar completely separate from my business calendar.
Okay.
So I know that some people say, hey, life is life, and I integrate the two. God bless you. I can't do that. On my tasks, I wake up in the morning and I look at, okay, here's what I've got already planned for the day.
Right.
And then as I go through the day, if there are appointments, of course, I go to my appointments and make phone calls as needed. But it's also like a checklist. So, drop off the dry cleaning, or make a phone call to this person, or follow up on this, or, get
Yeah.
your oil change, whatever those things are. And then remove that. I remove it. You can strike through it or just delete it from your calendar as those things get done. Sometimes we've got to push events from Monday to Wednesday because they're just not reasonable to get done in the same day. And that happens to me on a regular basis. But at the end of my day, I close with looking at my calendar again, making sure that I did all of my tasks and the things that I was needing to do that day. And if it needed to get pushed to the next day, a lot of times that'll be one of my first tasks that I do the next day. So when I was probably at my first sales job, I actually became a district manager of a sales organization, so I was managing other people as well as myself, and
That's a big deal.
it was paramount to be very efficient with my time and appointments and everything else. And so we had the handwritten planners, which I used for, I don't know, many, many years.
The Franklin planners.
Yeah, but they work though, because it's physical. You can strike through things, you can flip, so whatever works for you. But we would manage every 15-minute increment of the day. 15 minutes. So you start at 7, you end at 6, or whatever the case was, kind of the way that we worked back then. You're doing something every 15 minutes. And if you've got a 30-minute gap, it's probably because you're eating lunch. So that's a hyper-aggressive way. But, it seems like I have this conversation with a lot of people. I feel like sometimes I get more done in half a day than what maybe many people do in a day or two because of that hyper-aggressive focus of being task-oriented. And really the tasks are just to drive productivity, so to be productive. And that's what works for me. So I think that the key is probably finding either a balance or what works for you, right?
What do you do? Because life is so reactive, One would argue that on the other side, by keeping things a little bit loose, I'm able to react to.
So here's my downside.
But you said you get more done in a half a day than people get in an entire day.
But you'll also find kind of the negative of this side. So my friend Brett Shoemaker, which I hope you're on, I know you will be, he would tease me because of this, because I say, look, if you're not on my calendar a couple days in advance, it's going to be really tough for me to structure a meeting, even if it's like, hey, you're going to come over and eat dinner with me or something like that. So it's very structured, it's very planned out, it's very laid out. And so the one downside to that, if there is a downside, would be if Freddie says, hey, Billy, in 2 hours, here's this thing coming up. I'm probably going to say, hey, I can't make that thing because I've already had something else planned, whatever the case may be. Same with my lunch calendar. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing to get on my lunch schedule, sometimes it takes a week or 2 weeks, or even meet with a prospect or a client sometimes. But I think that having that filled up in advance just drives the productivity. And so very seldom do I find myself saying, oh, well, what do I need to do to be productive at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon? It's already in there. And so if somebody calls me and says, hey, you've got this last minute thing, sometimes you shift the calendar, but oftentimes it's structured, and sometimes that just needs to get pushed out, but then it helps fill the pipeline of your calendar where maybe it doesn't happen immediately, but you push that out 3 or 4 days.
Right, and that calendar helps you on your reporting too, as well, as far as your productivity, not just for yourself, but for your upper management as well.
Sure.
While you was talking, I was making a couple notes. I guess I'll work backwards. A lot of times, because life is so reactive, people will come up to you or call you or send you a message saying, hey, I'd like to meet up with you over coffee or lunch, to talk about X, Y, Z, and I think I've heard this at Second Baptist. I think I might have shared this here, where Dr. Ed Young has a policy, and his policy is like, well, hey, I've got a minute right now, Billy. What's on your mind?
Okay, that's good.
You know, and just handle it right there and take care of that meeting at that moment. And the other thing that I wrote down is how do you pick what to do first? You know, because you're talking about you write down a to-do list for each day of things you got to do. There's a philosophy of eating the frog first. You know, tackling the biggest thing first. So how do you pick what to do first?
So yeah, in a perfect world, I would pick the biggest, most productive task to do first. In reality, sometimes it's easy to pick a small, easy one and just get it off, so your calendar has less
Right.
things. So
Like going to the dry cleaners?
yeah, but sometimes I need to do that at a certain time of day. So you know, it's interesting. As long as I get all my stuff done, I'm okay with the order of it. But I know that I've got to hold myself accountable. So like if I've got a bunch of menial tasks and then one's following up with clients, and I leave following up with clients till the last one, and that doesn't get done, that's extremely bad for me and my business, and probably you and yours. So I really try to do the frog first and all of those things. The part about Ed Young that you mentioned, I'm curious about. If I walk up to you, I'll just say Billy and Freddie, and say, hey, I've got something on my mind, we need to talk, and you say, hey, I've got a minute now, let's talk. How do you limit that conversation so it doesn't eat up all of your time or your day and bleed into another appointment?
Well, you set up, you know, hey, I have a minute now.
Okay. So if I go 5 minutes, you're going to shut me down.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, well, Billy, you know, I can easily assess and say, I'm not going to be able to help you the way that you need me to help you, but I think I have a good idea who can. Do you have your card? Let me get your information.
That'd be good.
And let me make that connection. And then I spent maybe a minute to 5 minutes with you at that moment. That keeps me from having to
See you for 30 minutes down the
30 minutes to an hour with
Yeah.
a coffee break or lunch
Okay.
or whatever. So I managed my future time.
That's good.
You know?
Okay, I like
and
that.
still I helped somebody out, became a blessing, and hopefully it continues and grows from there.
So I'd be curious what your ideas are, or how you guys manage your calendar. I think that there's maybe no secret sauce or a silver bullet to any of it.
Nope,
It's
there's
really
not.
just getting it done, making sure that you are managing that calendar. You know, I'd be curious if there's anybody out there that says, hey, I just, you know, I go to work, and sometimes I go to the gym, and sometimes I cook dinner, sometimes I do. If you don't have a structure to your day, I'd be curious how that works for you in your life. And then if there was a little bit of structure, I like a lot of structure, so I
Yeah.
put that in mind. But there can also be just a little bit of a structure, like, hey, at 9 a.m. I got to do this, at 12 I do this, and at 3 I do this. And then in between all that time, you've got a lot of time to be you know, nimble and really be able to take phone calls and do the things that you said you were going to do. So
Right.
be a little bit more flexible if you don't have every hour eaten up already. So
Well, good deal. I think that's our Monday Minute.
I think so.
We'd love to have your feedback. Billy, do you want to close this out?
Yeah, we'll make it a great week. We're happy to have you. We're going to continue doing this and look forward to any feedback. If you want to send us a direct message or hashtag yourself in the comments with any specific feedback or questions, we'll be happy to address those. And we'll see you next Monday.
All right.
Thanks.
That'll be good. Now you go down here.